Greetings, all, and welcome to another Tale of Woe. I'm your storyteller, Tim, and today we're going to be beginning the second part, or the most. I guess the second part is really the best part. The aftermath of the Curse of Strahd campaign. So, after the party had made their way from Castle Ravenloft and setting it on fire. There was great celebration. The party spent, I think they spent, like in downtime, at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks in the town of Vallaki in Barovia, and celebrating and helping people rebuild and getting themselves re-equipped and ready to leave through the mists of Raven. Well, the mists were no longer there anymore, or were they? They were there, but they were no longer impenetrable. Let's just put it that way. And so they decided to make their way and pursue Rick and Morty. um, so after gathering up all their bits and pieces, they loaded themselves up on Stampy, the zombie elephant, and began to make their way out of town. And at this point, what I decided to do with the group is I wanted to give them a mobile home. And so what I did was that at there was an encounter in the book with a wagon which was owned by a gypsy vampire hunter called Esmeralda, and so they have like the stat block or the design of this wagon. You can actually buy the miniature of this wagon, and I found it and I bought it, and I thought this would be a good way to actually give them a place to stay while they're on the road on their adventure. But I also wanted to add something different to this particular thing. So I wanted to make this house a character. And so what I did was, taking some inspiration from Doctor Who, I created this wagon that was essentially a TARDIS, except that it didn't transport around. It was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. However, it wasn't a dimensional space. It had sort of different perspective variations to it. It could generate items, like if the party wanted to have a bath, it could create a bath on the inside of it. If they needed an additional room, it could create an additional room on the inside. It was basic. The way that I ran it was kind of like the holodeck from Star Trek: The Next Generation and Voyager and Deep Space Nine, however you want to do it. How it's a confined space, but the holograms that it generates makes the space a lot larger than what it actually is. So they may be pinned up against each other in the room, but because of the perspectives that the wagon itself is creating, it gives them an illusion of space, let's put it that way. So that was the basic concept of this wagon. But the other point about this wagon is that it actually had a personality. The wagon itself was actually alive. So if you angered the wagon wouldn't obey your commands and would actively act against you, as some of the players found out later. So in order to get this wagon into the party, I set up this little scenario. And one of the things that also was in the Curse of Strahd was where I got the name Rictavio. There's actually another character called Rictavio who doesn't like the Vistani, and he trained a leopard, I think, some sort of angry clawed cat, and it wasn't a tiger. I think it's a leopard. It might even been a panther. Not 100% sure, but anyway, he has this animal in a wagon, and then he sets this wagon up. I didn't include this encounter in the campaign, but what it actually does is that he looses the wagon on a camp of Vistani, and they all get completely massacred. So The way that I set it up was that I had that wagon on the side of the road. It had been open, and a bunch of Vistani had decided to flee after Strahd's death because the Vistani are seen as allies, or at least associated with Strahd, due to his deal with the Vistani and allowing them to leave. And so, in order to avoid any retribution, the Vistani had started to leave town. Then on the road, Rictavio, the non-wizard version of Rictavio, had set up an ambush, and the leopard or tiger, whatever, had killed a whole bunch of Vistani and left their wagons. However, one of the wagons was this magical wagon. Now, in the book as well, Esmeralda's wagon is booby-trapped with a fantastic booby trap. I absolutely love it. It is lined around the top of it with 50 flasks of alchemist fire, and if you come in through the door or don't do the trap properly, it drops all these things and the wagon just self-destructs. So this wagon was a bomb, but the group are riding on the back of Stampy. They make their way to the ambush. They investigate it, and Wallflower at this stage had in Strahd's castle. She had discovered a bag of tricks. So I think like 5 times per day she can pull a little furry ball and she can throw that, and then it becomes an animal under her control, I think, for 24 hours. So she was enjoying having a disposable set of animals that she could deal with. So she throws down her first furry ball and she gets a goat, and so she tells the goat to go and investigate to make sure it's not an ambush. And as soon as the goat gets near, the leopard just leaps through, grabs the goat and drags it off into the woods on the other side, and they just hear the goat. So it's like that scene in Jurassic Park. Where's the goat? And so, but because this animal had only been trained to attack Vistani, it wasn't going to attack the rest of the party. But anyway, so they move up, they investigate the other wagons, they see that all the Vistani have been just ripped to shreds, and then they see this wagon, and when they look in through the windows, they roll their perception checks, they see the booby trap. Nuru, with her wrist-mounted device, one of the functions of the hand mirror of death is it has a zoom function as well as an X-ray function. Because I had decided in the lore of this device, it wasn't so much it's like in the rules it's a disintegration pistol, but it's actually a mining laser. So the idea is that you hold it up against the rock, you X-ray into the point where you want to see where you find the rock that you want to dig to, and then you activate it and it digs its way through to that point so you can easily extract rock. It has like a depth function. So she was using the X-ray function to look inside the wagon as well, so she was able to see that all of these flasks were indeed there. Successfully rolling through, they managed to disable disable the trap, and they picked themselves up 50 flasks of alchemist fire, which they then stored very neatly and carefully into Geeve's newly renovated portable hole. What Geeve had done back in the town was that he had hired the local blacksmiths, just like the local tradesmen, and he'd basically turned his portable hole. He'd installed a ladder so you can climb into it, and then set up shelves inside the portable hole so you can actually go in and everything is very neatly arranged. You had like a small wine cellar area, a weapon rack area. So the portable hole was now a lot. It wasn't so much just a hole, it was actually a neatly designed extra dimensional space. So they had a chest, and they carefully placed all of the alchemist fire into this chest and sealed it up. So they now had themselves a very hefty bomb, which would come into play later on in the campaign. And then they all discovered the coolness of this wagon. I described to them that as they stand in the wagon, they sort of get vertigo, like the wagon sort of extends away from them as they're standing in there. And as I think it was Selena that went in first, as Selena goes into the wagon, she starts walking, and she just keeps on going further and further back into the wagon itself, so it appears to have a lot more depth than what it does from the outside. But then, like, I think she could walk like for 10 minutes in, but coming back it only took her like 30 seconds to get to the exit. So yeah, very very weird sort of thing. And then um they notice like the wagon actually puts on like a pot of coffee for them, and then they start talking to it, and it starts reacting to their their commands. Like they want to hitch up Stampy, their elephant, to the wagon. So they said, well, we're going to have to get, so they start trying to get Stampy into position, and they said, well, we don't have harnesses, how are we going to do this? And as soon as Stampy gets in position, the wagon automatically latches itself to the elephant. So like, oh, this is cool. So that was how they got their house and their portable home and their TARDIS for the remainder of the campaign. Uh, they managed to leave Barovia, and they found themselves on the outskirts of the town of Waterdeep once more, where they had left from. Wallflower at this stage had pulled all different animals out of the bag, like she'd maxed it out. I think she had like a giant rat, a tiger, a bear. I think I honestly can't remember what she got, but there was a weird menagerie of animals, sort of mounted all around the wagon. Like they had them riding beside, some of them riding on top. And so what they decided to do is, when they got approached by the guards, was that they said this. They decided to create a cover story that they were a traveling animal show. So Wallflower could change herself into different animals, as well as produce more animals, and they could do like a Cirque du Soleil type thing with animals. So it was like a traveling menagerie, probably the best way to describe it. And then they named. Like for the business, they named it Wallflower's Wagon of Wonders, and so that became their traveling pseudonym and their cover story. And making their way into town, they went to the bank and traded in all of their goods. They started going around. They sold a whole bunch of their stuff, and they retired to the Yawning Portal Tavern. And we'll pick up the story on the next Tale of Woe.